I will say that 2016, out of my entire career, was the toughest challenges because not only did I handle the most horrific murder investigations of children, I mean, they were kind of pretty much back to back, but I also handled my youngest victim of a sexual assault that it's just, you're not even going to believe me when I tell you, but take a guess as to how old you think my youngest victim of a sexual assault was.
I mean, based on the way you set that up, this is the worst guessing game I've ever had in my life. 4? Hopefully not younger than that.
Yeah. 6 weeks of being born.
What?
Yeah. It's just, I can't even put it into words. That's how evil it is, how crazy, evil, perverted it is. But and the worst part is that it was captured on video and audio. So I had to watch this junk for hours and hours just to be able to document the crime and be able to prosecute this individual. I don't even call him a person because you just can't be a person. And so that was like the tail end of 2016. So prior to that case, I had just investigated 3 homicides, and some of them were high-profile murders of these children. And it was one after the other, and I guess it just, one happened in the summer of 2016, and the other one happened in October 31st. And what comes after October 31st? The holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and I just couldn't do it, Dave. I just couldn't celebrate the holidays that year. I was stuck.
Well, ironically, Dias de los Muertos too, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. and so I remember literally, I come at my family has an extended family that's big and large in numbers, and I literally remember I just couldn't get into it. Where I isolated myself from my family. I couldn't get involved in the fellowship that we were having, and it was really tough. But one of the things that I was able to learn was I have to give myself permission to go ahead and grieve and be upset, be angry, whatever. But then give yourself permission to enjoy your family that you do have. And so that was something that I've learned throughout this process, because thankfully I was not too prideful to not get counseling or therapy because I needed it. And so I did. And those are some of the things that I learned, that it's okay to give yourself permission to feel that. I felt the survivor's guilt, like saying, how can I celebrate the holidays when I know my little angel that I investigated, their family is like in the, pit of hell, going through horrific loss. And, she was only 3 years old when she was brutally stabbed 3 times by this guy who was into the Ouija board and just evil thoughts. And it was on Halloween. So I was like, if I ever, I could tell you that in my career with LAPD, I met the devil twice. That was one of them, where you could literally feel the evil spirit of this individual. And I made it a promise that I wasn't going to walk out of that interrogation room until I got a full confession and had enough to prosecute this guy. And thankfully we did, and he's in prison for life. But what made this case even more like tragic, or what really connected me to this victim, her name's Ruby, and she was born on July 17. And when I found that out, I lost it. It's my birthday. So the following year, when our birthday came, I gathered with her family, and we celebrated our birthdays together. And if we could even call it a celebration, but what they did appreciate is that I included them in this opportunity to honor their daughter, and we've been close ever since. And we still continue to meet every year on the anniversary of her death, and occasionally we still get together for birthdays, because I do also want to give them their space. But I do know that they do appreciate the fact that I haven't forgotten about them and their daughter, and that I still honor their daughter on her birthday. And so, yeah, that it really changed the dynamics of that investigation. I've never, ever had that happen to me before. And in that case, it did. And I got to tell you, I was actually meeting with another family member on a different murder investigation when I heard on the police radio this call of Ruby being murdered, being broadcast, and the officers are requesting backup and help and paramedics and all this stuff. And I even told the person I was speaking to, who was the stepfather of the victim that I was helping in that investigation of his child. I says, "Oh man, I hope I don't get that case. It sounds like they're gonna probably call me pretty soon. I might have to leave. I might have to cut our meeting short and respond to that one if they call me." And sure enough, they did. And yeah, just so I went from one homicide investigation to another, and the one I was with, it involved a 11-year-old boy who pretty much was found dead in a closet. But when we found him, he only weighed 33 pounds. And so obviously he was starved to death, and he just looked horrible. And that's another case that I'll never forget. But so I was talking to the dad, giving him some updated information on the investigation, and here we are dealing with another one back to back. And so, yeah, it's just crazy.
How do you balance that? Because I mean, there's a couple of things that you said that stood out to me that I think are just important to brush over. I'm going back and forth here, but when in Madison Square Garden, there was an acknowledgement, and I'm correlating that with you acknowledging Ruby's parents and the birthday, and you didn't forget them, which I think is big. Sometimes an acknowledgement is just enough, and acknowledging people and looking up in the eyes, say, "I see you." And then there's also you saying that you personally gave yourself permission to grieve, and you gave yourself permission to enjoy your family. And I think all three of those are like massive overlays of kind of what we're talking about, what I talk about, because it's ironic to me that we have to give ourselves permission to that. And I hear that all the time, and it makes sense. They do, because I feel like there is a weird societal stigma towards handling these things. And like, you're not supposed to this, not supposed to that. And I think there's no supposed to. It's what feels good to you. It's what it's what you should do or can do for yourself or get to do for yourself. And the idea that we have to give ourselves permission is important to, I don't agree with that we have to give ourselves permission, but we do. I think, unfortunately, that is the way it is. And I think for anyone that is going through that, give yourself permission to do both those things. And both of them are just as important. A, to feel it. And that is a big pattern that I see with people kind of navigating their way through these feelings, is allowing yourself to feel it because it's easy to push it off. And also giving yourself permission to still find joy amongst it, because it's hard to do both. But I think that I just wanted to kind of just bullet point those three, because I thought those are very profound. But how do you navigate the world seeing what you've seen? Like, how does that affect your beliefs? How does that affect what the heck we're doing here, and good and evil and this, that, and the other? Because every time you've talked about something evil, it seems like you have found some sort of light at the end. So does that balance it out?
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to add to what you just said about giving yourself permission, the reason I use those words is because sometimes I hear the family members that survived, that are surviving or are grieving the death of a loved one, whether it was tragic or natural causes or crime or not. They often say that they feel guilty being happy, or feel guilty celebrating or doing something for themselves to make them, to celebrate, to be happy.
Right.
So that's why I say give yourself permission. But another good word could be just be intentional. Be intentional with grieving in the morning, cry all morning if you want, but come at 12 noon and you're going to see your family. Then be intentional with your family that you have now, so that you could still have a sense of, I still got loved ones here that I could celebrate, cherish, make every memory count, that kind of thing. And for me, the balance is really my faith. I do sometimes I kind of go back and forth with faith and asking God these questions like, why? Why would you allow this to happen? Why Ruby, 3 years old, innocent little girl? And I will show you a little story about Ruby that was very powerful. That I was actually allowed or asked to speak at her funeral, and so in doing so, I learned that Ruby was very smart for her age, and that she understood two big principles, or two important principles of life already at a very young age. And maybe she didn't realize it, but she lived it out. One was the power of forgiveness and the power of giving. And I say that because when I was asking her parents to tell me a little bit about Ruby, she said they mentioned, oh, well, oftentimes when she would notice that mom and dad were arguing or upset with each other, she would grab my hand, mom was saying, and then she would grab dad's hand and she would bring it together like this. And go, that's beautiful. Ruby at 3 years old understood that, hey, just come together, hold hands. Beautiful. Forgive one another, love one another, right?